Good evening. We are in Titus chapter 1. We began looking at verse 7 last week. We'll put that into context and then be moving forward with it. The fundamentals, remember, of this is the purpose of putting elders, bishops, in these congregations throughout Crete, but that, as we saw last week, that those standards for who should be put in were very high, and intentionally so. And it started with the high qualification of the family, not because that was different from these others or higher than this, but because I believe the way he's organized this is he's starting with those obvious things that we look at, and he's wanting us to see them in a different way first, and therefore to see the evidence, and pointing to the evidence, both of the man's relationship with his wife, his faithfulness to his wife, and the way in which he has trained his children, whatever age they might be, that they are faithful. And that is described then in two different ways, not accused of dissipation or insubordination. And the nature of those words, is what we'll see, are tied in with the problems they were having. And that is, we didn't want to have any of the children having the same problems that man's going to have to deal with as an elder. Because that he puts himself in a very difficult situation, and he hasn't proven that he's handled those situations if his children are involved. And that's really the key element here going on. And so he then reiterates, as we saw in verse 7, that he must be blameless, and the idea of not going to be called into question on these things. There's nothing there that someone's going to be able to bring up against him as a result of his behavior. And therefore, as he's someone who can put himself in this, take on this responsibility, a steward that is simply there to act on behalf of the one who is the owner, who is God. So then gives in verse 7 a series of qualities that are begun with, don't have these. These things you do not want in this man. And we looked at the first one, which was not self-willed. But I want to just go a little bit more into that. The idea of being self-willed, in this particular word, it's very, very much the whole idea. It's two words with the idea of the self part, and then the whole idea of pleasing yourself. So that your only concern is essentially pleasing yourself, in that as it ultimately comes to being is that it's only really, you're the only one that you are, there's opinion that matters, and therefore you get the idea of stubborn from this. So it's a very self-centric kind of idea. He says you don't want that in an elder. And we talked about the reasons why. Because if you've got something, and the idea of an eldership was there's more than one. Okay? Philippians chapter 1, verse 1 and 2. And since there's going to be more than one, it would be disastrous to have one of them who always had to have his own way. In which case you really don't have two. You've just got one and somebody, right? Because one person is running things, because we won't relent until he gets his own way. And the attitude that demonstrates is someone who cannot be, who you cannot approach, someone who is not good at listening or running through things. And there's an area of pride that's involved here, of thinking that no one else has anything to add that would help you and help overall build up the understanding. And it kind of violates the whole idea of you see in Ecclesiastes of that two are better than one. That's kind of the idea here. So, but I want to look at it also, if this is definitely not what you want. So you're looking out and you're saying, okay, I've looked at his family, I see how he is with his family, Now I'm looking out, and I'm looking at all these attitudes that I don't want to be here. Attitudes and behaviors I don't want to see. You are around people, mainly here at this building, correct? How are you going to know how someone is and whether or not these traits are present or not present in someone? What does that take? What? Being involved? Yeah. Okay, yes. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some attention. And it also means that you are aware, and when you see some things that, a lot of times we'll just let things pass over. If that in that moment they don't seem to matter, and we just kind of ignore them and go on. When you're looking at that, that's kind of odd. Why did he do that? Why did he have to have his own way about, how many, whether there are beans or not in the chili? Trying to be relevant here. Okay, so why did he have to have his own way about that? There's only one way, no beans, by the way. Okay. But why is that? Because it's just caught up in his own world, and in being able to then, what this is everything. If you see someone where it seems like everything has to orbit around him, that you have in his relationships, he expects deference all the time, and everyone has to, always defer and always do those kind of things, and he can't take input very well, you've got a problem. And though you see those as small things, if we have very little interaction and we see small things, it's not that we blow something out of proportion, but that we ought to pay attention. That if that man's name were to be put up, isn't that the guy that is a sore loser? He's going to keep doing and pushing and all this? We need to be aware of these kind of things because when they're small, in social things, they're just kind of annoying. In spiritual matters, they're deadly. And that's why you have to think about this. So, but let's turn it around, and I'm going to do this with all of them. So, what should we look for positively that shows a very different attitude and way of thinking than this? See, if we don't understand where the differences are, then we'll see the words, and we don't even know what we're looking for. And that happens so often when we come to what is such an important part of what's going on in the Lord's church, is if someone is not someone that has to have everything center on him, then what are you looking for to see someone as? What is he going to do if he's not like this? Okay, good. Is that if he recognizes, no matter how much he knows, and he needs to be knowledgeable, we'll get to that later, but that there's not the assumption that no one has anything else to contribute, but rather he knows they do. And so he is going to seek it out. It matters to him. It's going to be one of those things where, what am I missing? That's one of those things that any leader at the end of, right before you make a decision, the big question asked is, what are we missing? Okay, what have we forgotten here? What have I left out that could really cause a problem if we don't cover it? You want to take that into account and say, before we move on, I'm not going to assume that I've got it all down. And when you have people that can interact and realize that, okay, what do you see that I'm missing here? And they can go back and forth on this about people or about decisions that have to be made and what's the right thing to do. That really builds up of what can be in an eldership. where they can interact in that kind of positive way. Otherwise, everything becomes either adversarial, or where they're fighting for control over a time, or everyone just gives up and the one guy is getting his way all the time. And neither one of those is healthy at all. Yes? Yeah, I think you're right. And I would add to that, not just what you said about strengths, but experience. You know, there are certain things in one congregation, you may have gone a long time and know a lot about what's going on there, but that particular problem has never come up. But you happen to know that over 2 states over, someone you know that serves the elder, that they ran into that problem. Wouldn't it be foolish not to talk to them? That doesn't mean, that is no way violates the autonomy of the eldership or the local congregation to get advice. Okay? If it were interfering in decisions and pushing decisions, that'd be a different thing. But for advice or for counsel, not at all. And it does demonstrate that there's a recognition of his own limitations or lack of experience in certain things, and that there's a benefit to going elsewhere. Whereas a stubborn person is not going to do that. Is that I don't want to entertain the idea that I could be wrong or not know something. So that's, again, the same idea. Yes? Well, no, I understand your point, but that elder, if the relationship is right, he's going to try to find out more information. Usually, that's just going to be brought back for the others. It's the only time in which there could be a problem of him doing that if he's doing it in an adversarial way. Then you've got a different problem. Okay, if that's the case, you've got a very different problem. If that's the case, I've been contacted by different elders at different times for particular problems they were doing, just asking for a biblical. They wanted my input from a biblical perspective on here's what they were looking at, how would I proceed, and they wanted to make sure that they were not doing anything wrong or if they'd forgotten something. And I'm sure I'm not the only person they talked to. Okay? Now, I've had them where one elder called me. I've had it where I was on speakerphone with the whole eldership. So how they choose to do that is going to really be up to them. Now, if there's some kind of interference, whether you're going one elder against another, if it's a biblical question, that shouldn't even matter. One may say, we had this kind of problem come up, and one thought this, and I said, that's not how I thought, and it's a really touchy thing. He wanted to check on it. Okay, those things happen, but that's not the same as having a problem of the stubbornness and the self-willed part. The other thing though is that the second one, he says, not quick-tempered, which is interesting take on this word, because it has the word itself is more associated with the word wrath. But the idea is still there, which is that this is not someone that lets his temper get the better of him in whatever way. Now, where are you going to see number one, how can that go wrong? Okay, if you got someone who is quick-tempered in an eldership, some of y'all are being quiet to protect the guilty. I know it. You've seen it, but that can happen. Okay, yes. Okay. Yeah, there is going to be, we're going to see a theme start to form around this, and you're on to a part of it. Okay, so there is definitely an idea of and I'll just say it, of is he in control of himself? Or is he letting other things, that is, can he see, is he so internally focused he can't see beyond? Here is if he doesn't get his way or something else, can he not control that going out? So it's kind of both sides of that problem. Now, the idea, and I'm thankful I have never seen it, I've heard about this, I've never seen it, of where you could actually get into a shouting match at an elders meeting, okay, that would, why would that happen? Because you let anger get the better of you. And that if elders cannot have a civil conversation over something typically going to be about a judgment of what to do, and cannot have that in a civil manner, exactly what are we going to expect of the congregation? Because they don't even know how to do it themselves. So how are they going to be able to maintain peace when apparently they're part of the problem? Right? That's an issue. So you come over on this and you say, okay, well, you need someone they're not going to fly off the handle, but it's also, there's no grudges that are held. If you don't get your way as an elder on a particular way something goes, and it upsets you so much that you didn't get your way tying these two together, well, then we got a problem. If there's no actual scriptural thing involved, that's a problem. Okay, Bill?
Well, in a situation like that, I've seen, you probably have seen, they have failed the first phrase of Acts 20 and 28, taking heed to themselves.
Okay, good. That is correct, Bill. Is that when Paul told the Ephesian elders to take heed to themselves, this is one of the reasons why. That's why there's such a high bar for what an elder needs to be able to be and develop and how the maturity, because there's so much more pressure. Okay, there's so much more responsibility, so much more pressure. Now just think for a second of why that matters. When do you have the greater problems about exhibiting Christ-like character? Is it when everything's easy and you're relaxed and, hey, isn't this nice? I don't know, but it was pretty easy on that cruise ship to be nice to everybody. It was no problem at all. How you doing? Thank you so much. Yeah. That smile, that's good. Now, if I'm driving 5 o'clock traffic in Dallas, that's a different story. That's more of a test, isn't it? Okay? Now, I want you to understand that because the pressure's different. The frustrations are different. Okay? Well, the more responsibility you take on spiritually, all those same problems are true. There's a lot of things going to pressure that you have to have exhibited the ability to handle these things under difficult circumstances and not let them get to you. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It means, though, that you have shown some control over self so that you can handle being told, no, I don't think we're going to do that. Or I don't think we can go that way. And we have to be able to move on and then not go on and say, I'll get them back. Or I'll find my way to get them a different, I'll work it another way. Just that kind of thing. And I've seen this a lot, that problem from a preacher's point of view of when guys will do that. And it's a problem then. Well, it's certainly a problem within the eldership too. Next one, not given to wine. Now, the words that are associated with this end up having all sorts of controversy associated with them. Really, it's the phrasing more of the deacons in 1 Timothy probably that gets brought up more. This particular word means alongside wine. Okay? So it has to do with associated with or just, here you go. It's with, these two belong together in some way. Okay, there's that association. But a little bit of background on this, because you have to understand also when you get over to 1 Timothy chapter 5 that Paul tells Timothy to add a little bit of the wine in water for his stomach's sake, right? There's a medicinal use, okay? By the way, it wasn't have some wine for your stomach, right? It was put it with the other, okay? That is a specific medicinal use. But we need to understand the wine during this period, okay? Number one, the word itself is generic. It's a product of the grape. The word in the Greek is oinos. When you can get the word, I think they pronounce it. It's either probably enophile is someone who likes wine. That's the technical term. I learned that listening to political podcasts where apparently drinking is a part of everything. Drinking in politics, what can go wrong? And so you have that. That then goes into Latin with vino. Okay, but you can see the idea of vine. Okay, that's what it is. And so it's found both of alcoholic and non-alcoholic. So then you're looking in context to figure this out. Now, the first part, the historical part, is what in the Roman Empire was the way in which they made this and what it was the typical wine of the first century. Now, historically, they could make it plenty strong. Okay, they could. But that was not what was preferred during the first century. They actually, and we're talking about all the way up to senators and emperors typically, is that what they preferred was a wine that had alcohol in it, but that the percentage was not too high because they wanted to drink and drink and drink long and still be able to enjoy the taste long into the night. Okay, that was actually what their preference was, because they were in the words of my Roman history secular teacher, because they wanted a long run up to the buzz. Okay, that was their idea. Now that was my Catholic Italian Dr. Viscusi Roman history teacher. Okay, that's what they enjoyed. Now that's the general characteristic of all of this. So why is it such an issue, though? Well, during this time, and you're going to see it, I will say this, you see it more associated, it's more important probably when you get to 1 Timothy, but it still is of value here. But why it's even more important when you get to Timothy is because Timothy was written to, or 1 Timothy was written to Timothy when he was left in Ephesus. Okay. You also ought to remember in the book of Ephesians, the idea of, there was a comparison about do not be drunk with wine in which is excess. Right? There was a big cult that was strong in Ephesus, but also throughout the empire. A lot of the bigger gods, they kind of waned as far as they would, all right, that's nice and everything, fine, they're part of our history. But it was kind of those smaller gods that lasted. One of the ones that really had lasting power was Bacchus or Dionysus. Why? Well, I'm going to kind of keep this. He was the god of partying. Okay, he was the god of wine and partying. So this was part of the culture. It was very much first century issue of this idea of taking this in, and we're gonna keep on having it, and this is what we are. Which is why the association, why Timothy didn't have anything to do with it, and another reason, additional reason why Titus is told that they don't need to have anything to do with it. Why Timothy is told to tell the elders in Ephesus not have anything to do with it. Tell the deacons. It's why it says much. It's because in that culture, that's what the problem was, is they're going over and having a kegger, okay? So, a wine, that doesn't seem right either, but you get my drift. Okay. The whole idea, I'm just hoping you'll remember it, y'all. The whole concept here you need to understand is this is why, one of the reasons why this is inserted. But now put it into the context of the verse of all these things that he says, not this, not this, not this, not this. And what would have pointed out? It had to do with your self-control. What is one thing without question that alcohol affects? Your judgment, because you lose self-control. Your inhibitions. Your ability, it is quite literally taking away your ability to make good decisions. That's what it does. Okay? And that's, you can go to any kind of number of scientists who'll tell you that. Notice why then. All of these things, what do you want people who are going to want to be never put themselves in a position not to make a good decision. Okay? That's what it is. All these, some of them are just about personality and having yourself under control. Others are about having now your temper under control. Here it is not putting something into your system that's going to hurt your self-control. That's where all of this is going. Yes, Duncan. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. And that is, the nature of it affecting judgment is, that's why you've got to have a good, firm sense of self and a control over a center of who you are, rather than having all these other things getting a say-so on you, where you are, it's too much a personality thing, or it's too much about, I've got to get my own way, or I've got to go over here and this person made me mad. You're eliminating all those things. And that's what he's trying to do. That's, okay, now the next one, not violent. Not violent. Now, you're trying to make good decisions here, right? You're looking for men who are capable of making good decisions. One sure way to find someone who does not make good decisions is someone that ends up thinking that the best way to solve a problem is with a fight. Right? It's a little bit stronger than that, though. The nature of the word, sort of, when I say stronger, it has a root to it, going back to what Duncan was saying. I would characterize this as, God does not want any bullies in the eldership. Whether that is a physical bully, a verbal bully, a psychological bully, those people don't need to be elders. Okay? Because all of these things are ways, if you'll notice, of where that I just kind of get to do my own thing, and everyone ultimately has to adjust to me. Right? If you always are having to adjust to me, then I've just become the center of the eldership. That should never happen. The eldership should never have a center of one person. So what could happen? If you end up with these now, and you end up with this situation in an eldership, any one of these now, self-willed, going to be hard to get anything done unless you just go along with him, right? Quick-tempered, someone comes with a problem, you fly off the handle at them. Not given to wine. That's not just about example, it's about the ability that he's thinking through things for himself, and he's in complete control in positive ways. What could go wrong there? A bully? If you have a bully in the eldership, some kind, then guess what their way of trying to get people in line is? Is it a way of patiently teaching people, talking to them, encouraging them, persuading them with the gospel? Or is it, don't make me come over there, you know? It's what? Fear. Yeah, you're operating using fear, not persuasion. And let me tell you, this happens. Now, it happens some, other people just leave, but you got that kind of idea of the, why? You don't mess with me. And that's what this is talking about. Last one in the verse, not greedy for money. Now, there's actually a little bit of idea. What does it take to be greedy? I mean, right now I want to ask, okay, how many people here really dislike money? I'm taking a quick poll. If you hate money, raise your hand. Well, there goes my collection tonight. Okay, I was going to take it off your hands and solve that problem. Okay, but we all, so it's not that we dislike money, right? So what makes this a problem? I say, greedy. Well, when do you get greedy? At what point do you become greedy? I mean, you make a certain amount, and now you're greedy, so we're going to put a cap on what an elder can make? Okay, that's very good, Brian. Is the idea of how you get it. This is more of a word about how you get it, and you don't care how you get it. Did you have something, Phil? Yeah. So I think you combine both of those. I think it becomes such a priority about the money because that's why you then will make ethical compromises in order to get the money. The word adds the idea of shamefulness to it. It's shameful gain is the word, right? That's the original. So it's basically going on is that any kind of way, if you're going to get it in any kind of underhanded, sneaky way that a normal person would be embarrassed, okay, then that's a problem. You know, we got these deals and saying, well, we're going to adjust this and all. I'm not talking about taking advantage of tax breaks. I'm talking about working the system, right? Where there's always that question of the IRS kind of knows your name. What you might be up to, those kind of things, is that you're so set on that money that you're going to always be riding that line if that's what it takes. Okay, that's part of this. Okay, it's that the money part, the gain part, has become too important, and therefore there are compromises involved. Okay? So once again, notice what has gone across the board on all these things is that you've got this idea of you've got a compromise of some sort internally going on. About self is not really spiritually centered. There are other things that have some say on your decision making. That's really what he's getting down to. Is your anger has a say on your decision making. Your selfishness has a say in the decision making. Maybe wine has a say in your decision making. Okay, your temper, the idea of the force of overbearing personality, that has a say in your decision making. And then you come down to this, and all of a sudden, that idea of wanting money, that has a say in the decision making. You put all of those in it only takes one to create a problem and make it a decision. It only takes one of those to really cause some things to go off. That's really where he's going with this, is showing that in all of these together, that person is compromised, and you don't always know it. Now let's go back, because we've just got about 5 minutes left, and I want to now take this through. What are the positive things, and how are you going to see that this person, that men do not have these characteristics? Because that's what, in this case, you're looking for. You know that man is not guilty of this. He's even-tempered. How are you going to judge someone? You're right. How are you going to judge someone that is even-tempered? Okay, no. Okay, that is right in a way. Is that until you've seen them have to deal with a very unpleasant situation, you don't know. That is just simply how it is. Until you've seen them have something that was that could be a fly off the handle, just go at it situation, and that how calmly did they handle it and just work the problem? That's what you're looking at. The difference is someone who can work the problem. It doesn't mean they don't care or they don't feel strongly about it. It's just they care more about the person and try to fix things then a lot of times anger comes of where our own hurt from it is now turned into blame on somebody else, and sometimes even if they're not the one that was involved. But that's kind of what anger does, okay? So that's what we're doing. Go ahead, Amos. Yes. No, okay, that's exactly right, is that it's going to take time to figure these things out. And spending time with people to see them in different situations. And to realize that, you know, I'll tell you a story. When we were moving from Morris, Alabama to Granbury Street in Cleburne, Kenneth Helm, one of the elders at Granbury Street, Trace already knows what I'm going to do. He came because he had the trailers and everything because of his business to help move us, right? Now, we always grew up and we moved ourselves and stuff. Well, he went and he got some guys down that were basically just temps looking for a job for the day to help lift. That was great to have, right? Well, we're lifting some heavy things. I think it was our, at that time, the large kind of wooden entertainment center. Not exactly the lightest thing to lift, right? And I'm underneath it. We're going up the ramp, right? Well, he liked to work in a hurry. So I'm down here, and I'm staying here, and they're going up, pushing. And it just so happened that my fingers came in between the U-Haul ramp and the bottom of that. And in the process, I said, "Ow!" And he turned to me, and if y'all know him, you could appreciate this. He turned to me and says, "Well, you passed the first test." Because I didn't say anything untoward or do anything. It was those situations you get into just in being around people, doing some difficult things, that all of a sudden, you're seeing these things. And I was a part of another where I had somebody else with me that he got hit by a bar flying up and ended up cracking his jaw. So, you're around people in those situations, you kind of say, okay, we're seeing what's going on. And he handled that very well. But I'm just trying to get you to understand that we have to see stress and strain and difficulty, because you never know when you're going to have something really rough, ugly, tough thrown your way. Okay? And matter of fact, you may not even realize when you first come about it, know exactly how ugly it can be. Because for you, it's not really an issue, but that doesn't matter. Okay? So, and you probably got a list as long as mine, so I won't go into mine. But you've got those kind of things that go on, and you've got to have these things in mind, okay? When you are looking at putting men in as elders, and here's the problem: we don't look at these lists unless we're putting men in as elders. When we ought to be looking at them, when we see people and say, that's a good man there. Come over here and take a look. Spend some time, pay more attention to him. Don't wait around, because then we're doing everything in a rush. You do not make good decisions in a rush. You don't get to know people in a rush. Okay, that's what he's pointing out here. Now, he's left Titus there to get to know these people so he can make this kind of call. And don't think that he's not talking and involving people in the congregation that know people. Okay, it's not like that's not been going to be part of this process. This is all about making sure the right people with the right qualities are going in. Okay? So if you find someone who seems to always, be chasing a buck here and there and do anything, that's an issue. Someone that you just seems is really proud of their tough guy image, that might become an issue. You've got someone who is quick to get upset with people, that's an issue. You got the person that is say, well, I only have a little bit here and there, that's an issue. Okay? If he's always kind of putting on this, and whether it's at work, at home, it just seems like he's always got to be he's going to get that way. And that's hard because you got leadership in which you have to make the ultimate call. That does not mean that you don't involve others and find out more. Okay? That's part of the point here. So all of these things are this circle of characteristics to try to get you to analyze someone and his behavior. And remember, he's already given a family profile for you to look at. What in his family? You can look at evidence and see evidence of whether or not that says something good about him and where he's leading people spiritually. Now you're looking at him, and now you're examining him for telltale signs of problems. And on the other side saying, no, he's actually, he really is pretty calm and collected, and you know, he's over here all the time, and he handled that. You're looking for those kind of things, okay? Well, next week we'll come back and look and see that the same thing's going to be true as he's going to move into the positive characteristics. So we've looked at home in terms of relationships. Now we've looked at negative things we've got to avoid. And then next week we're going to go into now the things that are this whole full characteristics of positive things that need to be there. So it's only one verse. Everyone can read that. And then come back. How do we know that people have those characteristics? Because that's what we're trying to figure out.